Hey everybody, welcome to Moment of Clarity. I didn't intend to do this, but I did watch Donald Trump's speech, so now I feel the need to reveal all of the lies and distortion and bullshit, because otherwise it just sits in me like festering, rotting demons, and so I got to get it out. So I have gone through some of Donald Trump's speech, but what I did, which you can try this, what I did that actually helped a lot for watching the speech was for the half hour leading up to it, I pounded myself furiously in the balls. And so then I stopped when the speech started. So the speech seemed like a relief. And I was like, this is much better compared to what was happening before. So that's something you can try next time if you're ever in the unfortunate circumstances that you have to watch a Donald Trump speech. I don't know if you're tied down in some form of torture in a foreign country. You shouldn't be there because they're doing horrible things to you. But if that happens, that is one tip I have. So I'm going to go through some of the lies, distortion, and bullshit of of Trump's speech. Now, for those of you like, well, why aren't you going after the Democrats? I did. I went through the whole DNC last week. It was on Redacted Tonight. You can watch it at youtube.com/Redacted Tonight. So don't tell me I haven't gone after the Democrats. And by the way, you'll see some major criticisms of that as well, because I think there's a grand reason as to why Donald Trump is able to lie this much and get away with it, and it has to do with the fact that the Democrats are lying in their own ways. Mainstream media, the establishment media, has completely just given up any ability to tell the truth about what's going on around the world, and so therefore people don't believe them anymore. So Trump therefore can lie endlessly and get away with it. There's a certain percentage of this country that believe he's telling the truth because of the situation that we've been put in by our mainstream media, by our Democratic elite, but the traditional Republican elite as well has allowed this to happen. Anyway, I want to go through some of these sentences from Trump's speech, and we'll see how long how many I can get through before I just choke on my tongue and pass out and hit my head on the desk. And if that happens, please dial not 911. They might come and shoot me. Just dial some sort of medical professional and send them my way. Okay, so quote number one. This is from like the first or second sentence from Trump's speech because I got to almost the second sentence before I realized he was lying. He said he's proud of the extraordinary progress we have made together. No, no progress has been made, unless you mean the progress towards white supremacy, collapsed economy, massive prison industrial complex, endless mass surveillance, wars are going on overseas, endless bombing. If you mean that kind of progress, foreclosures, evictions, greatest inequality we've seen in forever. If you mean all that, okay, that progress. So I guess there was some progress. He also said, moving on to, I don't know, fourth sentence, our thoughts are with the people who have just come through the wrath of Hurricane Laura. No, you're not. No, they're not. Your thoughts are not with them. You're at least not your care. If a Hurricane Laura victim were in your living room on fire, Trump wouldn't dump out his drink to help them out, to put out the fire. He doesn't give a flying fuck about hurricane victims. He then says, while the hurricane was fierce, one of the strongest to make landfall in 150 years, but you've never heard of climate change? You're talking about how this hurricane is one of the strongest to make landfall in 150 years, and you haven't heard of climate change. Not familiar. It's not real. You're unfamiliar with it, like empathy or compassion. Just never heard of it. Never. This was one of the largest hurricanes in 150 years, with the second and third largest forest fires in California's history, simultaneously. None of that is starting to register. Might be a bit of an unusual time, meteorologically speaking, which is a hard word to say. And also, I don't know if fires count as meteorology, but whatever. Let's move on. We are one national family, and we will always protect, love, and care for each other. Now, this is possibly the biggest lie of the entire night. I love all of my children out there amongst the people, except blacks, Mexicans, immigrants, women, protesters, trans people, gay people, the disabled, homeless, the CDC, scientists, Muslims, not to mention people in any other country that is not the U.S. or Israel. I don't know. How long do we have for this? Because I can keep listing them, but we might be here for my natural lifetime. He doesn't give a fuck about any of those people, and neither do the Democrats. So this is kind of a standard lie, both from Trump and the Democrats. Oh, we care for you, except if we ever have to deal with a policy that actually cares for you. In that case, we don't give a fuck about you. We will lock up more people than ever before. We don't give a shit. We will keep bombing innocent civilians overseas. Anyway, I'll get to more of that in a second. Let's move on. We will again build the greatest economy in history, quickly returning to full employment, soaring incomes, and record prosperity. No, A, no you won't, and B, there was definitely no record prosperity. Not for most Americans, not for the bottom 50% of the country, really the bottom 80%. While the top has gained trillions over the past few years, the bottom has lost billions of dollars of wealth. It has been transferred from the bottom to the top. Saying this is literally like saying that this counts as a prosperity, because the Wall Street stocks are doing amazing and the wealthiest Americans are gaining more money than ever before. Calling that prosperity is literally like stealing the guy's money, and as you're doing it, saying, look how prosperous the two of us are. You see? You've stolen his money. But between the two of you, prosperity. The top 1%, or really 0.1%, have stolen immense amount of wealth from the average people of America, and Trump is calling that amazing prosperity. Plus, I'm going to bring back all of the jobs where you're effectively exploited at an incredibly high degree with a minimum wage that is fucking pathetic. I'll bring that wage slavery back for you. I won't actually put forward any plan to pay you more or give you better benefits. In fact, I'm working in the courts right now to take away what meager medical care you're able to get. But I'll bring back your wage slavery. He's claiming, of course, he won't be able to because it's an economic collapse. But he then continues, gathered here at our beautiful and majestic White House, which that part's hilarious because, of course, it's violating the Hatch Act, but of his offenses, that is a minor one. Gathered here at our beautiful and majestic White House, known all over the world as the People's House. When he first moved into the White House, he called it a shithole. So all of a sudden, it's the grand, majestic People's House. And again, this is totally violating the Hatch Act. You can't use the office of the presidency either to enrich yourself with the emoluments clause, or use it to get reelected, which is absolutely what he's doing. But again, one of his tiny little crimes. I mean, if you're like currently stabbing someone, is someone going to be like, hey, you parked your car an inch over the white line? Also, stop stabbing that guy. That's not really a crime when you consider the other crimes. But this is what the Democrats do, right? They've raised holy hell about the Hatch Act because that's something they can point out that they didn't do for the most part. But they won't talk about the bigger crimes because they themselves partake in them. So war crimes and the incredible inequality and the prison industrial complex, 5% of the world's population, 25% of the world's prisoners. The Democrats won't talk about that stuff because they do it. Biden is responsible for that prison population. So what they will talk about is he's violating the Hatch Act. I saw someone on the chat here mentioned that the White House also, the People's House now has a massive wall around it, which it does. It never used to have that. It used to have a fence, and now they put tons of security, massive walls around it. This is the People's House. On top of that, it was built by slaves, which maybe that should be mentioned when you call it the People's House. But let's continue. Trump said, "We will defeat the virus, end the pandemic, and emerge stronger than ever before. And we will do it by not believing in science." Because fuck that whole shit. He continued, "This election will decide whether we save the American dream or whether we allow a socialist agenda to demolish our cherished destiny." Yes, Joe Biden, one of the most neoliberal, pro-Wall Street, pro-credit card companies, pro-big bank motherfuckers, is the socialist. He's an evil socialist. I mean, it's kind of brilliant. Trump has decided to invent an imaginary enemy to run his campaign against, because he can't say they're that different in the core issues. So therefore, he says he's a socialist. I think he called him a socialist, anarchist, fascist, which I don't think you can be all of those things. They seem somewhat different, but. And then I did like that he said, by saving the American dream. I assume he means remain asleep to reality. That's how we're going to keep dreaming, is by remaining asleep. That's the only, as I believe it was Carlin that said, it's called the American dream because you have to be asleep to say it. Yes, actually it was Carlin, now I remember. And we're pretty good at that. We're pretty good at remaining asleep. And, of course, there is no socialist threat that he's trying to create. The closest thing to a real socialist threat is the slight pressure to have health care for everyone in America that the establishment Democrats have succeeded in fucking purging from their party, you know, giving basically any progressive almost no time at their convention because they don't actually believe in those things. These are Wall Street corporatists who don't believe people should have healthcare. They believe healthcare should be exploited for profit. The same thing Donald Trump believes. And we'll get a little more to that in a moment. But you know, Donald Trump calls them the evil socialist demons because there's a couple in the far out Siberia reaches of the party who believe that everyone should have health care. Which, if you find that scary, then okay, just go full throttle. I think you should go around to hospitals and knock IV bags out of people's arms. I mean, why not? Why stop at just making profit? Let's also make sure people don't get health care if they're currently got it. You know, I would like to see that. I would like to see mobs and you could come together, Democrats and Republicans, establishment Democrats and Republicans, getting together and being like, let's go to the hospitals and knock fucking IV bags out of children's arms who have cancer. Let's do it together, holding hands, singing Kumbaya. All right, Donald Trump continues. Your vote will decide whether we protect law-abiding Americans or whether we give free rein to violent anarchists, agitators, and criminals who threaten our citizens. Now, I'm gonna take a leap here, and I assume he means cops. Let's see, violent agitators, criminals, threaten our citizens. Yeah, he must mean cops. Because they are the true criminal cabal. I mean, even if there were some sort of leftist that shot someone, which there's not, it doesn't exist. But if there were, that'd be like one dude. Whereas cops are an actual force of thousands, millions across the country that kill people on a regular basis, on a daily basis, once every few hours. Thousands of people a year, over 1,000 a year. And meanwhile, in other countries, they seem to not have this problem, almost at all. In Britain, it's like, 7-10 people a year the cops kill. In other countries like Denmark and Switzerland, it's 0 or 1. In Germany, it's like 3 or 4 that cops kill. So other countries that are similar to us don't have this problem basically at all. But anyway, Donald Trump doesn't have to worry. The violent, brutal death squad, white supremacist outfit called the police is going to be safe, and they're going to be fine, and they're going to have they're not going to have any trouble. Let's continue. At the Democratic National Convention, Trump said, Joe Biden and his party repeatedly assailed America as a land of racial, economic, and social injustice. Yeah, but America is those things. America absolutely is those things. And no, the Democrats don't plan to do anything about it. Not the ones that have successfully rigged the primary to have the nomination. They plan to do nothing about it. They will talk. That is the difference. The Democrats will talk about how America has at least some racist institutions. They will talk about economic inequality some of the time. They will talk about social injustice and act like it exists. They will just then proceed to do nothing about it. The Republicans, as we're seeing in this sentence from Donald Trump, act like it doesn't exist. Isn't that a beautiful dynamic you get to choose between if you're voting for one of those two parties? So yeah, have no fear, Donald. Your great country of immense racial and economic and social injustice will remain that way even if you lose. Congratulations. Have no fear. I hope you rest easy at night. You know, you can sit back and whatever fucking lazy boy you jump into and melt into with your fucking McDonald's meal while you watch Tucker Carlson on Fox News. Oh, don't worry, you can rest easy. We will keep being a racist, unjust country for many years to come. Trump continues. Unlike previous administrations, I have kept America out of new wars, and our Trumps are coming home. That's our Trumps are coming home. That's probably more accurate. Our troops are coming home. That's one of the best ones of the whole night. Unlike, should I read it again? Because that's a pretty good punchline. Unlike previous administrations, I have kept America out of new wars, and our troops are coming home. No, you haven't. Trump actually attempted to start 2 new wars, bombing both Syria and assassinating Iran's top general, which then resulted in Iran bombing U.S. military bases, which could have easily spiraled into a massive new war because Iran is not Iraq and they could have defended themselves in an aggressive way, and it would have been catastrophic. Okay, so Trump has tried to create new wars. He bombed more than Obama ever did, dropping a drone bomb almost every 12 minutes. Obama dropped more than Bush did, dropping a drone bomb it was 26,000 in his final year in office, Obama's final year. Trump has continued the catastrophe in Afghanistan. He helped continue a new Cold War with Russia by putting and most people don't like to know this, more sanctions on Russia than Obama did. His administration supported coups in Bolivia and Venezuela and other countries. He supported the fascist leaders of countries like Brazil and the Philippines. The U.S. military is active in 22 African nations. 13 of them saw battle over the past year or two, and he did not rebuild the depleted American military as he claims he did. The U.S. military was not depleted, okay? The U.S. spends more on military than 140 countries combined. And Donald Trump simply increased that bloated death machine. And he created an entirely new space force to try to weaponize space. And he hasn't brought any troops home despite all of his bluster and claims. He is as much a war hawk as any president before him. And in the rare occasion that he tried to create peace with, say, North Korea, he didn't have the backbone to stand up to Pompeo and John Bolton and those other sniveling fucking weasels and actually create peace with any of the countries that he made salvos as if he was going to. The reason he can lie like this, something people need to understand, the reason he can lie like this and get away with it and it doesn't impact his poll numbers and it doesn't impact his followers, the reason he can do it is because no one trusts the mainstream media or the politicians, the Democratic politicians or the Republicans who have jumped over to the Democratic Party. They have lied so constantly that many Americans have no idea what truth is. They don't know which way is fucking up. So when I hear MSNBC giggling after Trump's speech ended, they giggled and they talked about how, it's so silly how much he lies. But it's fucking infuriating. You, MSNBC and the other fucking corporate media, created the space for him to do that and be believed. because you lied so endlessly. You have given up the realm of truth and you have ceded it. And so now when you giggle and say he lies, it doesn't impact people anymore. You see how that works? All right, let's do a few more. Let's see. Oh, God. This is going to fucking marathon. Another Donald Trump quote, unlike previous administrations, I've kept America out of new wars. Oh, damn it, I already did that one. Sorry. Democrat politicians refuse to protect innocent life, and then they lecture us about morality and saving America's soul. Tonight, we proudly declare that all children born and unborn have a God-given right to life. Now, obviously, this was him reaching out to all of the people who don't believe in a woman's right to choose. He obviously wants their votes. But let's move past that idiotic attack that he's saying there. He then went on to say, like, Democrats support killing babies when they're already 14 years old, up to age 14. No, he literally said until 9 months or whatever. Like, no, they don't. They've never stood for that. This whole phrase, partial birth abortion, is a fucking bullshit phrase. Anyway, but that's not my point. My point is that he's actually right on part of this. The Democrats do refuse to protect innocent life in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Syria, and Yemen, and Libya, and Palestine, etc., etc. But neither does Donald Trump. None of them care about innocent lives. The two parties have killed tens of thousands in Venezuela. It was estimated to be 40,000, but now it's closer to 100,000 just from our economic war alone. They literally withhold medicine from the sick and dying. Both parties. So it's good to see Trump speak out against that, against fucking snuffing out innocent life. Unfortunately, his policies do that on a daily basis. Let's continue. He said, if the left gains power, they will demolish the suburbs. I love this line. First of all, the left is not in this election, okay? There is no left in this election. I'm sorry to break it to you, Donald Trump. Joe Biden is not the left. Joe Biden is one of the most Republican politicians there is. So really, this election is Republican versus Republican in the two corporate parties. There is no left. In fact, the Democratic establishment rigged the primary to make sure there was no left in this election. Secondly, yes, you are correct that if Joe Biden gets into office, he will demolish the suburbs. But so will you. Both of you will demolish the suburbs because you are neoliberal Wall Street greedy sons of bitches. And you are demolishing the suburbs by demolishing the middle class, by demolishing anyone who could afford a regular house. There hardly is any middle class remaining because all the wealth has been extracted to the top. And Donald Trump gave the rich a massive tax break, and Obama allowed Wall Street to get away with the largest crimes we've ever seen until this year's bailout, which was larger crimes. $4.25 trillion basically given to big banks and Wall Street to get through this pandemic. So yes, you're both destroying the fucking suburbs. Congratulations. Two more. I got two more statements from Donald Trump. No, maybe three more. He said, last month, I took on Big Pharma and signed orders that will massively lower the cost of your prescription drugs and to give critically ill patients access to life-saving cures. Big Pharma has done fucking great under Trump's administration. Big Pharma, Trump even brought them in to solve the pandemic, which is the opposite of what should happen. He basically said, hey, here are some profit-seeking sociopaths. Their whole job and whole life has been centered around extracting money from you so that you can survive. And now I'm going to get them to save you. The same people who killed hundreds of thousands of you with opioids, and that hasn't slowed, they love you, and they're going to take care of you. Right. Thanks, Donald Trump. Appreciate it. Okay, this next one these are the last two, but this next one is a huge one because at some point in this speech, and I think this is why you don't see it's tough to do like a traditional fact check for a Trump speech because there's like lies on top of lies on top of lies on top of lies. And it's tough to break it all down. But on this next one, I'm going to try to dig a little deeper. He said last year, over 1,000 African Americans were murdered as a result of violent crime in just 4 Democrat-run cities. The top 10 most dangerous cities in the country are run by Democrats and have been for decades. Thousands more African Americans are victims of violent crime in these communities. Joe Biden and the left ignore these American victims. I never will. And then fireworks go off. Okay. Let's try and get through this. Number one, I don't know if the number is correct that he pulled out of his ass, 1,000, whatever. Let's just pretend it's true, okay? When he says 1,000 African Americans killed, does he mean by cops or by others? Because if we're counting cops, then that definitely sounds right. Number two, if you look at the numbers, white people commit more murder in this country. And one of the reasons is because there are more white people, okay? There is a lot of white people committing murder. So let's remember that. Number three, this number he's pulled out of his ass is designed to scare white people, along with maybe African Americans. But over 80% of murders of white people are committed by other white people. Far more murders of white people are committed by white people in America. Not by black people. So to use that as a scare tag is fucking ridiculous. Number four, Democrat-run cities does not mean that these people that were killed, if we're using his whatever numbers he made up, does not mean the people that were killed by Democratic policies. In fact, as we well know, many Democrats are really just Republicans. So, they're Republican light, maybe. So it doesn't mean anything that these Democrat-run cities did caused these deaths. We could do, except for inequality, which I'll get to in a minute, we could do the same thing to Trump by saying that 17,000 murders have happened this year or last year. I think it was 2019, 17,000 murders in America by the Trump-run America, right? 17,000 murders in Trump-run America. Now, are all those murders Trump's fault? No. There were 15, 16,000 murders a year when Obama was running America. Because the core issues are not addressed, which is something, you're noticing a theme here, the core issues never get fucking talked about. They just get left behind while we pay attention to the spectacle, while we pay attention to the big orange guy. Look at that, get angry about that. Don't look at the core issues, which is why I'm taking his speech and trying to get to some of the core issues, although I'm really, due to time, not digging as deep as I could. Let's see. He then also says that 10 most dangerous cities are Democrat run. Well, again, many of those Democrats are light Republicans, but still, let's just ignore that. The reason 10 most dangerous cities are Democrat run is because they're also the 10 most populated cities. Because when more people vote, it's often more people of color, because more people of color live in more populated areas usually. They tend to vote for Democrats. There's also a lot more crime in highly populated areas because there's more people interacting with each other on a daily basis. When you're living in fucking bumfuck Oklahoma and you want to kill someone, you can't even do it if you wanted to. You got to drive a half hour out of your way to find another house. Then you find the house, you go in there, and it turns out it's your cousin, all right? So you can't fucking kill people in some of these other states. There's nobody there. So you just shoot a buffalo to take your anger out. Anyway, he claims Biden and the Democrats ignore these victims and that Trump, never will. Now, this is false in multiple ways. Yes, Trump ignores these victims. Of course he does. That's, he actually tries to invoke more crime against African Americans. So he doesn't just ignore them. He actually tries to create crime against them. But also, Biden does not ignore African Americans. In fact, he is very attentive to them because he wants to lock all of them up. Biden's 96 crime bill has done an amazing job of locking up 1 out of every 3 black men at some point are in the prison system because of Biden's awful, racist 96 crime bill. So basically, he's very attentive to black people. Biden is. He's like, there's one, lock him up. There's one, lock her up. There's another one, get that one. So he's not ignoring them. I don't know why Trump would say that. That's really offensive. So really, Trump is saying, if Trump wanted to say something accurate, he could say, no one has locked up more black people than Joe Biden and his 96 crime bill, but I will try. That's what Trump could say if he wanted to be truthful. All right, one more point on this two-sentence quote. If either party cared even remotely about crime, then they would care about inequality. And if they cared about inequality, then they would do things such as regulate and tax Wall Street and redistribute the insane wealth of the top 50 richest people to the actual hardworking Americans. The $200 billion Jeff Bezos now has. He makes the yearly salary of an average American in less than a minute every day, every minute of every day. So if any of them cared about inequality, they would do that. But beyond that, they would actually discuss and criticize capitalism. Let's get at the root of market capitalism and why it ends up with such immense inequality. That's if they actually cared about why we're in this situation, why there's crime at all, why there's so much hardship at all. Okay, now the past 5 minutes have all been a fact check of 2 sentences by Donald Trump. If you wanted to fact check his entire speech accurately, you would have to spend that long on just about every 2 sentences, which is why I'm not doing it. So here, all right, here's one last quote from Trump, and then I'm fucking checking out of this because I'm getting sweaty. He says, quote, these same liberals want to eliminate school choice while they enroll their children in the finest private schools in the land. They want to open our borders while living in walled-off compounds and communities. They want to defund police while they have armed guards for themselves. Okay, first of all, can we just acknowledge that the second part of each of those things Trump has? He has armed guards for himself. He literally lives in a walled-off house now because they've walled off the White House. So he lives in a walled-off compound when he's at his other compounds. He lives in walled-off compounds. His kids go to the finest private schools. So he is all those things that sound like he's criticizing them, but he is them. But beyond that, I would love for this to be true, despite the hypocrisy. Because at least it would mean that the Democrats support public schools. Support more open borders, support police reform. That's what if what Donald Trump just said in that sentence were true, that would mean the Democrats actually support those things. Public schools, more open borders, police reform. But they don't. Of course they don't. The establishment Democrats don't give a fuck. Obama deported more immigrants than ever before, did not actually build up public schools, and did not decrease funding for police or even create any sort of reform for police. Even though Black Lives Matter started under Obama, because so many black people were getting killed, unceremoniously killed by police under Obama. So when Trump says this, not only does every second part of those things apply to him, but every first part does not apply to the Democrats. But again, he's able to lie this much and get away with it. People will watch his speech and go, yes, yay, America. And they'll do that. He's able to do that, and they will believe him because our media has abandoned the world of truth. They spent 2 years creating Russiagate out of whole cloth. Which, by the way, the Mueller report proved they didn't actually find anything, didn't actually find collusion. And then Mueller, many of you don't know this, Mueller, of the tiny number of indictments they were able to get, which were of clickbait farm workers in Russia, they quietly, a few months ago, dropped all those indictments because they couldn't actually prove them in court. So, anyway, they spent years creating that bullshit. They spent, on the Ukraine crime that they indicted him for. Biden did equal by and Biden proudly said it. You can go watch the video. Biden proudly saying he paid off the people in the Ukraine. But he held up loans so that they would fire a prosecutor looking into a oil company his son was on the board of. This is not, I know the Democrats try to deny it, but they can't really deny it. He's on video saying it. Anyway, the mainstream media they lied through all of this. They act like our wars are not going on. The Afghanistan papers, which were published by the Washington Post and revealed that we have been lied to daily through both administrations, all three administrations, Bush, Obama, Trump, about Afghanistan, and that there is no goal and there is no end in sight and there is no troops coming home and none of it. Now, that was the Washington Post, but it was a blip on the radar. It was covered, on CNN once, and then they moved on. And the Washington Post moves on. Because that one tiny legit bit of journalism is nothing compared to the fucking spooge of horseshit. That is, I don't know if you can spooge horseshit. That is sprayed across our screens 24/7. And by creating a world where they are doing that, where they lie that much, where they put forward a bullshit reality that much, no one believes them anymore. And so now Trump can lie at this level and people have no idea what to believe, what's real, what's not. They're living in a false reality. And they like that at least Trump, in his speaking, has insults to the mainstream media, has insults to the deep state, has insults to the establishment Democrats. All those things they like. And so they don't even understand the reality of the situation. That Trump has allowed the core exploitation of Americans to continue at pace, the core obliteration of other countries to continue at the same pace. The continued imprisonment of American citizens in a prison state that is completely a crime against humanity. He's allowed it all to continue. It's not changed. And they don't understand that. They don't get it because they don't know. They can't find the truth anymore. Anyway, this is a good time to mention that the movement for a People's Party, where actual progressives, actual lefties get to speak, is happening this weekend, August 30th at go to peoplesparty.org to find out more. And their view is they're not running a presidential candidate, so this time around. So vote your conscience in the election. And following that, let's create a fucking actual party that is actually accountable to the American people. Anyway, that's at peoplesparty.org. There's a bunch of great speakers there, including Cornel West and two former Democratic presidential candidates, Mike Gravel and Marianne Williamson. Jimmy Dore, they're going to be playing a clip from my stand-up. Anyway, a lot going on there. That's this Sunday, I believe. Peoplesparty.org is where you can get more info. Please share this video, like it, comment it before you dip out. If you're watching this on Facebook, please go over to youtube.com/momentofclarity and hit subscribe, and also sign up for my free email list. But most of all, please share this video because I'm incredibly suppressed. The things I say are not supposed to get out there, so I rely on you all to help me do it. All right, keep fighting.